Alright, good afternoon everybody. Is this working? Right. Good. So I'll be presenting on the port development proposal that forms part of the Pembroke Dock Marine project. But before I do, I just wanted to echo Martin's comments from this morning. How happy I am to see this seminar, this conference now being held in our nation's capital. I went to the inaugural one 10 years ago. It was a lot cheaper then, a lot fewer people, but it's in Pembrokeshire, and I hope one day that we can bring it back to Pembrokeshire. And I'm certainly going to have to pull my socks up and do something pretty special to get it back, because it is going from strength to strength, as Marine Energy Wales is as well. So without further ado, I'll start on the development. But before I do, I just wanted to thank all the technology developers, the supply chain businesses who have inputted into this process. Those who've seen me come up and talk about this project a number of times in the working group know that we've been looking at a number of options for Pembroke and how best to develop it to meet the needs, or to meet your needs. And those with keen eyes will see that what I'm showing, what the output of this consultation was shown by Graham earlier. And I did it intentionally just to break it in gently. I know we're close to the Heath Hospital, but I didn't want you all passing out with excitement and ambulances coming to get you. But here it is. I mean, this is our collective vision for a modern port facility in Pembroke. I'm incredibly proud to be sharing that with you. The focus is really to build on our existing facilities. Those who have been to Pembroke already know that we have the supply chain capability. We know we've got the fabrication spaces, we've got the operational laydown areas, we've got the supply chain both in the port and in close proximity to meet your needs. But obviously what we're trying to do is have an eye on tomorrow. It's about sort of how that offer scales up, because with multiple developers there are going to be quite tight space demands on the supply chain. So the overriding request from the consultations was really more laydown space, more fabrication space, more office space, and this is what we're trying to deliver with this project. The main focus of the project is in the western part of the site. For those of you who've been there, you know it's Gate 4. It was a former military site. It's got a lot of small military buildings in it, and the idea is to try and open that up, create more laydown space, increase the interconnectivity between Gate 1 and Gate 4, put more fabrication space on, and increase the accessibility into the water. The first critical request we got back from the consultations was to increase the laydown space. And what we're seeing here is about 70% increase on what we've got on offer in Gate 1 at the moment. And that's cost-effective laydown space. So when you're talking to ports about using their laydown space, quayside space is prime port real estate. It's expensive in terms of sort of how many pounds per metre squared per week or part thereof you would have to pay. But if you move away from the quay, it's a lot cheaper. It becomes a fraction of a pound. So providing that cost-effective laydown area for early stage development and then sort of moving the product through towards the quay was a critical piece of a critical consideration in this. The second critical piece of infrastructure is how you actually get your piece of kit in the water. So traditionally, heavy lift over a quay, expensive. Why is it expensive? You need a crane, you need to mobilise that, you need people on the ground mobilising it, you need a potentially dynamic positioning vessel, and if the oil and gas industry is booming, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of pounds a day potentially. And developers are cottoning onto this, and a lot of feedback was we'd either like a heavy lift quay or we'd like a slipway, because we're designing our technology so that we can float it off. Obviously, when you've got the types of devices, the full-scale devices like Marine Power Systems and Bombora are looking at, these are long, big, heavy objects, and that access infrastructure needs to be versatile enough to cater to all those needs. So we're looking at combining effectively two existing slipways within the former Royal Dockyard, Slip 2 and Slip 3, into one 18-metre wide slipway that goes out into deeper water than we can currently get equipment out on at the moment. And that, along with the offering on Gate 1, where we can continue to do the heavy lift, will really should support the needs of the sector going forward. Obviously, in addition to laydown space and access infrastructure, we do need buildings. The rationale for buildings is that, those of you who have been to Pembrokeshire in the winter, sometimes in the summer, the weather's very unpredictable, and to maintain high quality builds, we do need inside covered space where the high precision engineering can go forward. And what we're showing here in the development that we're looking to go for planning for is 3 major buildings of size that we haven't had in Pembroke for a number of years. Back in the day, we did have some pretty significant buildings over all the slipways in Pembroke, and I kind of wish it never got messed about with, because it would be quite good for purpose these days. But we are where we are, and these buildings are. What we're doing with the planning application is we're looking at buildings of the largest scale possible to get consent, and then there's flexibility within that outline consent to meet exact requirements. But these buildings are looking like they're going to be about 40 metres to the ridge. Put that in the context, it's about twice as high as the Sunderland hangars, if you've been to Pembroke before, so pretty significant features, and will offer competitive facilities that will compete on an international scale. As I mentioned, with the access infrastructure, sort of having better interconnectivity between the Gate 4 and Gate 1 sites is important as well. So we're looking at transport corridors, both light goods vehicle, which is sort of shown in the blue arrows on the plan, but then a heavy good route that runs through the centre of the ferry terminal, which bisects the Gate 1 and Gate 4 area. And the other piece of quite significant feedback we were getting, for those of you who remember the initial proposals, we were proposing office buildings where we're proposing laydown space at the moment. And the majority of people said, please, don't put office and support facilities where we have the laydown. Move the offices close enough to, but far enough away, so that we can be where the action is, but not necessarily interrupt with the operational activity. So the opportunities that have presented themselves are in our existing heritage buildings. For those of you who've been there, they're not pretty at the moment, but we're working on that, and we're in business planning at the moment with the Welsh European Funding Office, not under Priority 3, which is a first for today, I think, under Priority 4.4, which is infrastructure for regionally significant projects, to try and renovate and modernise these annexes to make them into modern multi-use commercial facilities, fit for purpose, fully connected, digitally, and effectively places where you'd be proud to bring your investors in open plan space overlooking a beautiful port. So there's also another annex example there, which is the Western Hangar. Unfortunately, one of them's in such a bad condition, we are looking at demolishing and putting it back up as new, but with a bit of a contemporary twist. So hopefully that'll lift that whole part of the port up. And the sort of final last few bits are just about sort of amenity. We work hard, and the port can be quite a hard industrial area, but it's important to have those green spaces where you can kind of get a bit of a breath of fresh air. And we do have that in the southeast cluster of the port. It's the old carriage drive. So back in the day, the naval officers used to come in on their carriages, and it's quite a nice little promenade. It's unloved at the moment, but we are looking to try and sort of lift that up to a bit of a nicer green space where you can have breakout and relaxing. And it will also improve the interconnectivity with the town of Pembroke Dock, which isn't sort of the performing the best socio-economically. There's a picture of it. Finally, not to leave the ops guys out, I know work both things important, but we do feel at the moment we've got opportunities for berthing within the port, both at Pembroke and in Milford, and the waterway is quite a long navigable area with berthing and moorings on it. So I think what we're hoping to do, rather than sort of put berthing into this design, we'll react to needs as and when they come up. And thanks a lot for listening.